The hotel marquee glowed. 20-year reunion, Westbrook High Class of 2004. Guests streamed inside, laughter already echoing. Jennifer Hartley stepped through the ballroom entrance in her Air Force service dress, silver wings catching the chandelier light. At the bar, her father David was already holding court, gesturing proudly toward her brother Robert.
Robert just made VP at Greyhawk Capital, youngest in the firm's history.
Old classmates nodded, impressed. Robert swirled his whiskey, a confident smirk carving across his face. Jennifer walked toward the group, but their backs remained turned, voices loud with laughter.
Hey, Jen. Still figuring out life, huh? Dad was just telling everyone about my new corner office.
A classmate asked what she did. Before Jennifer could speak, David cut in.
She moved around a lot. Government work, I think. Nothing major.
Jennifer's forced smile wavered. The classmate looked away, losing interest, leaving Jennifer frozen at the edge of the group.
You hear that, Dad? She can't even describe her job. Probably stamps forms in some basement.
The classmates laughed, and Jennifer's forced smile finally shattered into a thin, hard line. David nodded along, clapping Robert's shoulder, his pride reserved entirely for his son. She turned away without a word, her jaw tight, and slipped through the crowd. She found a shadowy corner near the service door, the laughter still ringing in her ears. Pulling out her phone, she saw a waiting message from her aide at the base. The message read, "LT Colonel Hartley, mission debrief tomorrow, 0900. Intel confirms 17 survivors from your extraction." She read it twice, the words a cruel contrast to the dismissal still echoing in her ears.
17 lives saved because of her, and here she was utterly invisible.
Across the room, Robert's voice carried, "Where'd Jen go? Probably hiding again." The circle laughed. Before she could react to Robert's mocking voice, a woman from her old study group emerged, her smile careful and warm. The classmates' eyes swept over her uniform. Her voice was kind as she asked what Jennifer was doing these days.
Government work. It pays the bills.
The woman's smile tightened. She glanced toward the crowded bar, then back, the pity unmistakable. A cheerful call from the popular group, and she squeezed Jennifer's arm before hurrying away.
She wanted to see me succeed, but success means money and titles.
The room dissolved. She was 17 again, in the high school hallway as her father announced Robert's Princeton acceptance to every passing teacher. The same day, she'd won the state science fair. David never asked. The ribbon stayed in her backpack, crushed and forgotten. The memory crashed into the present. The pain dull but familiar, like an old scar never fully healed. She ran her thumb over the silver wings on her chest. The invisible girl had become a decorated officer. But here, she was still nobody. The clinking of a glass cut through the chatter, and all eyes turned toward David Hartley at the center of the room.
Friends, classmates, if I could have your attention for just a moment, I want to propose a toast.
His voice was warm, but his eyes swept past the dim corner where Jennifer stood, deliberately avoiding her.
To my son, Robert, the VP at 38, the boy who always had a plan, and now he's living it. He's the pride of the Hartley family.
Couldn't have done it without your support, Dad.
Robert's smile spread wide as the applause rolled in, David's silent excommunication of his daughter hanging heavy in the air. Jennifer stood motionless in the corner, her fingers going cold. Not a syllable of her name passed her father's lips. A classmate near her muttered, "Did he just not mention her?" The pity in their glance was a needle.
Raise your glasses to Robert, the son who made it big.
The glasses rose around the ballroom like a wave. In the corner, Jennifer's hand stayed at her side, her decision forming, cold, silent, and final. She moved toward the exit, weaving through groups of old classmates, her jaw set hard as stone. But the doorway was blocked. Classmates, drinks, laughter, sealing the only way out.
Going somewhere, Jen. Wait, I've got a career tip you'll actually want.
Robert was already striding toward her, the room's attention trailing in his wake.
I talked to a buddy who runs a call center. They're always hiring. Steady hours, no stress. I'll put in a good word.
Her nails bit into her palm. The pain was a tether. Then her phone buzzed again, a sharp vibration against her thigh. The message read, "All engineers extracted safely. Pentagon commends Reaper."
They think I belong in a call center. I've called in airstrikes that saved battalions.
She was caged inside her uniform, every escape route sealed by the life she couldn't speak. A classmate, intrigued by her uniform, turned toward David. "Where does Jennifer work these days?"
Paperwork. Some government contract. Nothing exciting.
Yeah, I bet she's the fastest form stamper in the basement.
The old friends around them chuckled, the joke landing exactly as intended. Jennifer's jaw muscles bulged beneath her skin, but she said nothing. A well-meaning classmate tried to soften it. "It's honest work, right?"
Honest work. I am a decorated officer, and they're consoling me like a charity case.
The pity was worse than the mockery. It confirmed her smallness in their eyes. Her hand, hidden at her side, trembled against the wool of her dress blues. She was holding herself together by a thread that was fraying fast, and no one in the room noticed. The MC's voice crackled through the speakers, slicing through the low murmur. "And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Class superlatives."
This is yours, Robert. They know who the real success is.
They always knew. Dad.
The host tore open the gold envelope and beamed. "Most successful goes to Robert Hartley." Robert strode up to the stage, shaking hands like a politician. David's applause was thunderous, his pride almost violent.
This award belongs to my father as much as it belongs to me. He pushed me, believed in me, never let me settle for less. I owe him everything.
Not a word about Jennifer. The omission cut deeper than any insult could.
He truly believes I don't exist.
Raise your glasses, everyone. To the Hartleys, the family of winners.
The applause surged around her, and Jennifer's silhouette faded further into the edges. She was wallpaper in her own family's story. The applause finally waned, and the ballroom exhaled. Robert and David were instantly sealed in a circle of handshakes and envy near the bar. Jennifer lingered at the perimeter, a ghost watching a celebration she had no part in. A drunk classmate, reeking of whiskey, stumbled into her personal space, grinning with a sloppy confidence. He looked her up and down and slurred. "Must be tough, having a brother like that. But hey, at least you are pretty. That's something, right?" He laughed, a wet, ugly sound. Jennifer's eyes narrowed to slivers. A dangerous calm settled over her, far colder than fury. The drunk man's grin faltered. He took an unsteady step back, suddenly sobered by the ice in her stare.
Excuse me, I need the restroom.
She pushed through the restroom door, the harsh white light a shock after the dim ballroom. She was alone. She gripped the sink, knuckles white, and stared at the stranger in the mirror. A decorated officer, a ghost in armor. She splashed cold water on her face, then straightened her uniform with deliberate precision. No more. She was done. She stepped out, the ballroom's noise washing over her again. The exit was just across the room. Then the main doors swung wide, a shaft of brighter light cutting through the dim room. Heads began to turn. A 4-star general in full mess dress strode inside, his ribbons a cascade of color. 2 aides shadowing him. The music died. Conversations choked off. Every pair of eyes locked onto the silent authority at the door. The general's gaze swept across the ballroom. Slow, deliberate, searching for something specific. Jennifer's feet stopped cold. A heavy, instinctive dread coiled in her stomach. He continued scanning, his eyes passing over old classmates, then her father, then Robert. Then his gaze tracked back and locked onto the dark-haired woman in the Air Force dress blues. Jennifer knew that stare. Her cover was blown. Something terrible or magnificent was about to happen. The general began to move, his path cutting directly toward Jennifer Hartley. The crowd parted without a word. At the bar, David's smile froze. Robert's glass halted halfway to his lips. They exchanged confused glances. The general stopped 3 feet from Jennifer, his aides halting behind him. The silence was absolute.
Lieutenant Colonel Hartley, I've been looking for you.
His voice, deep and resonant, carried every syllable to the farthest corner. He extended a hand, not for a shake, but to present a command coin. David's jaw went slack. Robert's face drained of color. The room hung on a collective indrawn breath. Jennifer's spine straightened. Reflex took over. Years of discipline met the moment. She looked the general in the eye.
They're finally seeing me.
The coin gleamed in his palm, the symbol of a debt that could never be repaid with a toast or a title. Robert's glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. David took a step forward, as if to intervene, then stopped, utterly lost.
3 months ago, over the Hindu Kush, your extraction saved my son's reconnaissance team. Without your close air support, they would have been overrun. 17 men owe you their lives.
The words fell like a hammer. Gasps erupted around the ballroom as classmates exchanged shocked glances.
They call you Reaper for a reason, Colonel. I am here to thank the ghost who saved my blood.
David's face strained. Robert looked as if the ground had swallowed him whole.
I'd be honored if you'd sign my command coin for the wall at the Pentagon.
Jennifer took the coin, her hand steady. An aide produced a silver marker.
They finally see me, not as sister, not as daughter, as Reaper.
She signed with deliberate strokes, the scratch of the marker deafening in the silence. She extended the signed coin back toward the general, her eyes never leaving his. The room held its breath, but before the general could close his fingers around the coin, a shaking voice cut through the stillness.
I always knew she'd make something of herself. She gets it from me.
The room erupted in low murmurs. Robert stared at his father, his mouth opening and closing like a landed fish.
I taught her resilience, pushed her to be tough. She learned it from watching me.
Jennifer's outstretched hand tightened around the coin. The general's brow furrowed, his eyes narrowing.
He's rewriting history right in front of everyone.
David stepped closer, attempting a paternal smile, but his eyes were desperate, pleading with her to play along. The air thickened. Every classmate leaned in, sensing a crack in the facade. The general looked from Jennifer to David and back, his hand still waiting. Jennifer's arm lowered slowly, the coin disappearing into her fist. She had a decision to make. Jennifer's stare bored into her father, a silent accusation that held the room captive.
He's making himself the hero of a story he never even read.
The memories snapped into focus. Her father at the science fair, not even glancing at her winning project.
Every holiday I missed for service, he filled with praise for Robert's latest deal.
The general's hand remained extended, but his eyes now flickered with confusion and doubt.
If I stay silent, I am complicit in the lie. I become the nothing they always said I was.
She lifted her chin, her posture shifting from daughter to commanding officer.
He had 20 years to notice. He chose not to. This is his consequence, not mine.
Her fist unclenched, the coin reappearing, and she raised it toward the general without looking away from David. The room saw it, the moment Jennifer Hartley chose truth over silence. David misread her silence as acceptance. He stepped forward, arms open, forcing a proud smile.
That's my girl. I always told you kids she'd make something of herself.
Before the boast could finish, Jennifer's hand shot up, palm flat, cutting the air like a blade. The general stiffened. David's words choked off. His arms dropped. The room held its breath, a collective intake silencing everything. She stepped closer, her uniform crisp, her voice a low, dangerous rumble that carried across the stillness.
You want to know what I do, Dad.
The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ice in the glasses stopped melting. The general's aides exchanged glances. David's face drained. His bluster collapsed into something small and pathetic, A father suddenly stripped bare. She let the question sit there, a blade hovering over his reputation, her eyes never leaving his. The ballroom waited, every soul suspended on the edge of a revelation that would tear the Hartley family apart. Jennifer finally spoke, her voice low and cold. "You knew nothing, Dad." The words sliced through the air like a scalpel. David's face crumbled, white as the tablecloth. She didn't wait for him to find air. She turned back to the general, her hand still holding the signed coin.
The coin is signed. Thank you for the honor, sir.
The general took the coin with a slow, deliberate nod, his eyes never leaving hers. Respect and sorrow mingled there. Jennifer stepped back, her spine ramrod straight. She gestured toward the exit without a flicker of hesitation. She began to walk, the general falling into step beside her as if they had always moved together.
"Jen, please."
She didn't turn, her stride never broke. The sound of her heels on the floor was the only reply he got. The ballroom doors opened ahead of them, a rectangle of bright lobby light framing their exit, like a silent proclamation. Behind them, Robert's face remained frozen, his mouth parted in disbelief, the most successful award forgotten on a table. David's voice died in his throat. He staggered backward, bumping a chair, his bluster gone like vapor. Jennifer and the general reached the threshold. For one suspended heartbeat, she filled her lungs with the lobby air. Then she stepped through. The bright light from the lobby swallowing her silhouette whole. The doors swung shut with a final, echoing thud, sealing the ballroom back into its dim hush. The room stood paralyzed. No one clinked a glass. No one spoke. The silence was thicker than the applause had been. Robert's blank stare dropped to his hands as if they belonged to a stranger. David lowered himself onto a bar stool, one hand covering his mouth, his eyes glistening. Classmates began to whisper, trading pitying glances toward the shattered Hartley men. The only sound left was the hum of the chandeliers and the ghost of a door that would not open again. The murmur began slowly, a rising tide of confusion and judgment that washed through the ballroom. A woman near the bar turned to her companion. He never knew his own daughter. 20 years, and he had no clue. Robert remained slumped at the table, the award lying face down, his shoulders heaving once in a silent sob. David lifted his head, scanning the room for a friendly face, but everyone he met quickly looked away. 2 former jocks exchanged glances. One shook his head and said, "I wouldn't want to be him right now." The circle of admirers that had surrounded the Hartley men evaporated, leaving a widening ring of empty space. David signaled the bartender, but the man busied himself polishing glasses, refusing to make eye contact. Robert finally pushed back from the table and stumbled toward the exit, his tie loose, his eyes unseeing. David remained on his bar stool, a solitary figure in a room that was rapidly emptying. The hum of the chandeliers grew louder, filling the void left by the absent applause and the missing daughter. David slowly pushed himself off the bar stool and shuffled along the empty edge of the bar, his shoes scuffing the tile. He rapped his knuckles on the counter, but the bartender refused to look up, wiping the same spot over and over.
"1 scotch. Neat."
The bartender hesitated, then poured with a quick, reluctant motion, sliding the glass across without meeting David's eyes. David lifted the glass, and in the mirror behind the bottles, a stranger looked back. A man hollowed out, unrecognizable.
"What have I done?"
No one answered. The only reply was the distant clatter of plates being cleared, the retreat of final footsteps. The ballroom was now a cavern of empty tables and wilting centerpieces. The celebration rotted to its core. He stared at the melting ice in his glass, watching it dissolve like his reputation, his family, his very sense of self. The chandeliers flickered once, and the emptiness pressed in, filling the space where his daughter had once stood. The last guests grabbed coats and avoided the bar entirely, their murmured judgments trailing behind them like smoke. A janitor wheeled in a cart and began clearing tables. The 20-year reunion banner dumped unceremoniously into a trash bag. The most successful award lay on the floor near Robert's chair, its gold foil catching the dim light, completely ignored. Robert hadn't moved. His tie hung loose, and he stared at the wall where the general had stood, as if frozen in amber. David rose from the bar, leaving his half-empty glass. He did not glance at his son as he passed through the ballroom's tall windows. A single sedan pulled out of the parking lot, its taillights shrinking into the dark. Robert's phone buzzed with a text from a colleague, but he didn't reach for it. The screen lit his blank face, then went dark. Staff moved around him, stacking chairs and gathering tablecloths as if he were just another piece of debris. The house lights came up full, harsh and unforgiving, exposing every stain on the carpet and every crack in the Hartley myth. The reunion was over, and so was the illusion of the perfect family. Outside, the night air hit Jennifer's face like a long-denied gift. She drew a deep breath, free of the suffocating ballroom. The general stood beside her, his aides already gone, the city's distant lights reflecting in his silent understanding.
Reaper, I meant every word in there. You make us proud.
Thank you, sir. That means more than you know.
She allowed herself a small, genuine smile, the first that evening, not born of pretense.
My car's waiting. This isn't the night to drive yourself. Let us take you back to the base.
Jennifer gave a single nod, and the general gestured toward a dark SUV idling at the curb. Inside, the leather seats were cool, the hum of the engine a steady lullaby. She watched the hotel shrink in the side mirror. The city lights streamed past in a blur of gold and white, and with each passing block, the weight on her shoulders lightened. She was no longer the invisible daughter. She was Lieutenant Colonel Hartley, Reaper, unbound. The SUV rolled to a halt, the hangar lights ahead strobing through the windshield like a silent welcome. She emerged, her boots striking the concrete with a solid finality that echoed off the tarmac. She tugged the hem of her jacket once, the silver wings catching the floodlights with a cold, brilliant gleam. For a long moment she stood still, a solitary silhouette on the vast tarmac, the city a distant memory behind her. Then she walked toward the open hangar, toward the waiting C-17, toward the life she had earned. Her stride never wavered. No hesitation, no backward glance, only the steady metronome of her heels. The camera caught the wings one last time, a flash of silver before she disappeared into the hangar's maw. The hangar doors remained open, the low rumble of pre-flight engines vibrating through the concrete. The screen slowly faded to black, leaving only the ghost of her footsteps and the scent of jet fuel. Jennifer Hartley had found her home, and it was not a house with a white picket fence. The command coin rested on a plain wooden desk, the hangar's glow catching the single word inscribed on its face: Reaper. Through the hangar doors, the tarmac stretched into darkness, but one small figure still moved with unwavering purpose. Her silhouette shrank, then merged with the distant glow of the runway lights. She did not need their applause. She did not need their approval. She had earned the only title that mattered. Not most successful, but Reaper. Some names are given, some are earned. Jennifer Hartley knew the difference, and in the end, that was all that mattered. Respect is not given, it is earned.